What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Building Code. If you are watching on YouTube, you will notice that the person beside me is not Zach Witovich, but instead is my dad, James Burtwistle. How's it going, Dad?
Going just great. Great to be here.
Yeah, super pumped to have you. The reason that we have Mr. Burtwistle, the original Mr. Burtwistle, on here is this is a special Father's Day episode. So we'll be interviewing a father-daughter duo as well, too. But kind of curious, you kind of just squeezed your way into this opportunity. I'd love to hear about how you ended up on the Building Code today.
Well, I went to the IBS show out in Las Vegas and got to visiting with Courtney, I believe. And first of all, I was pimping her for some Buildertrend stuff. And she says, well, Charley hasn't given you any of this stuff yet. I was like, no, he's pretty tight with it. And so she came out with a whole armful of stuff, you know, hats and what have you, and a nice mug. And then she says, she asked something about background on a podcast. And I said, well, I wouldn't mind being on a podcast. She goes, that'd be great. What a great idea. You know, and that's kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah. If people have listened to this podcast religiously, you'll know I often complain to Zach and team about my ability to not get to travel. He's always all over the country. And a prime example was an International Builder Show this year, which I did not get to go to. And then I have to check my phone and see my dad gallivanting across the floor, meeting with our CEO, CRO, Courtney, obviously. And like everyone is sending me pictures like, oh, your dad's so great. We're having such a good time, just rubbing my face in it. So I'm glad you got to enjoy that.
Hey, in fairness, I heard about the International Builder Show from Charley. So, and I don't know if he's said anything in the past, but we are thinking about why I am going to build a house out on the ranch. And he says, you know, Dad, if you went to this International Builder Show, you might be able to get some really cool ideas. And boy, did I. But another really cool thing was being able to hang around the Buildertrend booth. Any of you out there that have never been to the International Builder Show, you need to make the Buildertrend booth your one-stop shop.
Absolutely. Love that. So before we jump into the interview, one reason we wanted to have you on is obviously because it's a Father's Day episode and you are my father. But the other reason is just your background teaching in builder construction. I'm wondering if you could give the listeners just a little bit of overview of kind of the experience you have there.
Yeah, well, like from the building side of things, I mentioned, you know, Charley is a fifth generation cattle rancher, although he has moved off the ranch temporarily anyway. And so when you grow up on a ranch, you know, there's always stuff to fix. You know, you build a lot of fence, and actually when I went to college, I majored in industrial arts, so I had some shop background there, and I did get my teaching degree while I was playing football at Wayne State. And you know, in the back of my mom was a 40-year educator. And my dad just, eighth grade education, never really left the ranch except for 4 years in the service. And but anyway, I just always kind of wondered what it would be like to teach because I had my teaching degree and I had done some coaching and some substitute teaching. And, you know, I got to be mid-40s and I'm like, you know, I think I'm going to do this. So I actually got an opportunity to teach at Ord for one semester. And they actually had me set up their building construction curriculum. And then the job opportunity opened 30 miles from our ranch a year later in O'Neill, Nebraska, and I taught there for 13 years. And so I really enjoyed it. I taught building construction, exploring technology, and drafting.
Love it. And of course, we had the Burtwistle & Son Roofing LLC.
Yep. The year Charley graduated, I think it might even been his idea. He says, you know, Dad, we ought to just do a little roofing in the summer. And it turned out really well. It was a nice little money maker for us. It was kind of hard work for a guy in his mid-50s, but we overcame, and it was a great opportunity. I wouldn't trade those 3 summers for anything. It was just a good bonding opportunity, and really enjoyed it. You know?
Yeah,
and gave Charley a little boots on the ground experience with the construction industry.
Absolutely. It all kind of started from there. Well, really, really happy to have you on here today, Dad. We are going to get our 2 guests in here now, Cassie and Max from Tru Builders out in Arizona, father-daughter duo. Really, really interested to hear their perspective of just interpersonal, how they work together in their family, how they foster, a culture of community and family-oriented goals at their company. I'm sure it's going to be great. So without further ado, let's get them in here. Hello, Cassie and Max. Welcome to The Building Code. Super, super excited to have you. Very special episode today. and you two are the perfect people to be a part of it. First question we always like to ask is just tell us a little bit about yourselves and maybe a little bit of background and how you guys got into construction and where you're at today.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having us on. We really appreciate it. I started in construction when I was a young kid because my father was a contractor. So technically I'm second generation, Cassie's third generation. I started working with my dad when I was 10. I worked all summer long and he paid me a $20 bill. And then when I was 11, worked all summer. He gave me a 50. When I was 12, he worked all summer. I worked all summer for him, gave me a $100 bill. And he goes, okay, Max, now I've taught you how to work and I haven't paid you much. So my dad definitely taught me a work ethic. He ended up retiring when I was 19, 20 years old. He semi-retired. And so I worked with him throughout the summers. But then when he retired, I ended up being a ski bum for about 4 years, worked construction in the summertime. And then I went to work for a national builder when I was about 23, 24 years old, somewhere in there. And then have been self-employed since 1999. So that's my story.
Yeah, he has been in it forever. So I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, I kind of just grew up around it. So that's how I know everything that I know. But I've been working in construction and for Tru Builders for about 7.5 years now. And it's super fun, actually. So I did take some business management and design classes, but I kind of learned a lot of it organically through my dad, also through my mom. She did a lot of design when I was growing up too. So it's kind of a whole family affair over here.
Did you have the same pay scale as your dad? Did you go 20, 50, 100 on the way there? Or did Max, you pay a little better?
I wish. No, I always like, oh, when did you like first start doing things? I was like, man, I was in the office when I was like 13, just trying to get some allowance money. I'm like, Dad, you need me to file something? I'll do anything for you. And so that was really fun. Mm-hmm.
It's awesome to see a father-daughter team in the industry. Can you talk about how this dynamic makes your company a little bit unique?
Sure. I think that it's fairly common to see second and third generations that are, father, grandfather, son, grandson. But I think it's a little bit different when there's a daughter involved. And so I think that gives us a little bit of a unique perspective. The other thing is that Cassie is much more on the design end, but she knows every part of the business because when she first came to work for us, she basically shadowed me for 6 months because I wanted to make sure, hey, Cassie, I don't know if this is really something that you want to do, but let me just shadow me for 6 months and then you can figure out if this is something that you want to do, what aspect of the company that you want to be in. The other thing that I want to share with you is that we do have 6 kids, and all of our 6 kids have worked for the company for a minimum of 6 months. Cassie's the only one that said, yes, this is what I want to do. So
the chosen one.
Yeah, exactly. The coolest one. Actually. No, just kidding. They're all awesome, but they all went on to do things that they loved a lot more. And I think that is unique about us because we are a father-daughter team. And I think it just goes to show like our story, like our stories on our website. So many people look at it and they're like, wow, that's so cool. Like I never would have thought a father and daughter would run a construction business because obviously it is primarily run by men, but it's such a cool experience. And I think they get a lot of a different perspective from it, coming from a woman and then also coming from a father-daughter duo. So a lot of our clients love it and our trades think it's really cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely unique. A question I have is not necessarily on our list, but dumping a little bit more into the father-child dynamic. I'd be interested to hear of like, what was the initial dynamic of Cassie kind of coming into the business? I'm thinking more so my dad and I had a roofing company growing up, and I don't want to necessarily use like changing of the guard, but I want to hear both of your perspectives, maybe Max first. How do you go from, okay, this is my child that's like helping out around the business to like, this is my business partner actually making decisions and I'm not the only one running it anymore? Like when did that switch over happen? And maybe what's the dynamic like today?
Sure. So it was probably about 2.5 to 3 years after Cassie came to work for us. My wife, Lori, and she's an integral part of the company as well. She does the accounting and the HR behind the scenes stuff, but super, super important. But after about 2.5 to 3 years, Cassie came to us and said, "Hey, I think this is something that I really, really want to do." Because prior to that, quite frankly, I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life. My wife and I have plans. We want to do some travel. We wanted to do, some other things, see grandkids, all that other stuff. And so when she said that, it was like, awesome, great. So we started including her in all of our meetings. So Lori and I would have our own, like what we would call executive meetings. Cassie was part of that. So from early on, she was part of the executive meetings, and we really valued her opinion. Yeah, it was super important for that.
And then Cassie, maybe from your perspective, like when did it stop seeming like shadowing and started seeming more so like running and being an operational part of the business? Do you ever feel like you were stepping on toes maybe as you were getting into that, or was it pretty seamless?
I think there may have been a couple toes stepped on here or there, but I think that's just the nature of growing and scaling your business and moving into different things. I think one thing that always stands out to me is I used to do so much of it with him, and I don't know what he was doing or what I was doing, but he was like, "Hey, can you just go do this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I went and did it, and the trade was like, "Wow, this was so awesome. Like, I didn't think you knew any of this stuff because you don't really talk much," because he was always talking over me, but that's just personality. And so that was really cool. And then from there, I think I just was like, I totally know all this. Like, I'm just going to do it. And that's when I started to transition over into more of like the operations manager, an executive of the company. And we definitely stay in our boxes as much as possible, which is really nice. And I know that when I'm making decisions or I'm bringing things up, he always says, he's like, "Well, if I'm not going to be here, it's your decision." So that's really good. I love that respect aspect of it too.
And good for you, Max, for giving her that freedom to do that. My question is, how many different crews do you guys have?
So yeah, we self-perform a certain amount of our work, and then we have our preferred trade partners. So what we self-perform is we self-perform our all of our demo. So just take a step back. Primarily, we do additions, remodels, kitchens, and baths. We will also do select custom homes as well. That is actually my forte. That's what I did for a long time, up until 08 and 09, when that just flattened out, and then we started doing additions and remodels. So yeah, when it comes to crews, so we have two main crews out in the field. One is more specifically designed for the rough and the framing end of it, and another one is more specifically designed for the back end, the trim, carpentry, millwork, things like that. But what we do self-perform is we self-perform all of our own demo. We do most of our own structural framing, and then millwork, trim, carpentry, those types of things. And then everything else we trade partner out.
Cassie, I know the construction industry is kind of dominated by males. Do you run into any conflicts or when you're out with the crews, or are you pretty well received, or do they know they don't mess with you, or they got to deal with Max?
I definitely have had some bad experiences with different trades, or just like new people that don't really know who I am. I would say I get tested a lot. They always test me with their different questions, and they do kind of come off pretty passive aggressive, but I think that's just the type of industry that we're in. And I know that we're definitely heading in a different direction, which I love to see. But I have run into quite a few people that didn't like me on the job site and didn't take things from me. So we just kind of came to the decision early on, if we ever had issues like that, we just would no longer work with that trade, or we'd kind of move past it because it just wasn't a good fit for us. And we really value our trade partners and our employees. So we want to make sure that we obviously respect them and they respect us, vice versa. But I've definitely had some difficult conversations here and there.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I can and I can't. But something I was kind of curious on, you mentioned like the R story on your website and kind of the family values and culture that you guys bring, which I think is awesome. A lot of the recent episodes of the Building Code that we've been talking about is just how to set up your business for success, maintaining, retaining talent, making it a fun place to work, ensuring that it's not just a business, but it is a family. And you guys are kind of literally leading from the front there in that dynamic. But I'm curious for how you foster that culture for the non-family members that are a part of your business, and how do you keep those same values and make sure it translates to your entire staff? I think that's something that a lot of our listeners are trying to do organically outside of the typical kind of family nature that you guys have.
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and address that first. I think a lot of companies have what's called an organizational chart. We have what's called an accountability chart. So it's a little bit different. So we have 4 main boxes to our company. One is sales and marketing, another one's pre-construction, and then construction, production, and then HR and accounting. And so because of the fact that we have that, everybody is accountable for their job and for their job description, and we give them the responsibility and the authority to be able to do that. For me, my box is sales and marketing. Cassie's is pre-construction. And then we have another person that does production, and then Lori. And by the way, Jason, who is Cassie's husband, he's over there. They are both over there in HR and accounting. So I think that's the foundation of where we're at. We just make sure that we have everybody is accountable for what they do. When it comes to core values and family values, it's just something that we've always done. We've treated our trade partners, suppliers, and employees like family. And that was part of actually me growing up with my dad. I remember that my dad's trade partners and suppliers, they were like family to him as well. We consider ourselves a relationship-based builder, not just with our clients, but with our trade partners. I've had my roofing contractor has been with me for 24 years. My fabricator has been with me for over 20 years. We have trade partners and suppliers that we have over 20 years worth of relationships. And so I think because we value that so much, that's reciprocated then back to us as well from our trade partners, from our suppliers, and from our employees as well. We always just tell people, look, family first. The other thing too, I tell our employees, I know Cassie does all the time, look, if you're not having fun, go do something else. So I'm really a fun guy, I think, for the most part. And if we're not having fun, let's figure it out so that we can have fun.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of our companies kind of split in different generations and age and dynamics and things like that. But I always strive to make sure everybody feels included, and just the environment overall. They all know they're not just a number to this company. We try really hard to give them good incentives and good just feeling when they work here. They love the environment and they love everything that they get, and they know that they really are like family to us. And they respect us with that, and they come to work every day with their A game, doing exactly what they know that they need to do because they're invested in it as well, which we have found that so many of our employees do really invest in the company because they want to see it grow. They love what they do here, and they just love the environment overall. So I think that's one of my favorite things about Tru Builders. It's just the company culture that we have here. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I think when you have employees that take pride in their work, that carries over, and that really helps your reputation as well. And I think that's really good that you're doing that. Hey, I had another question for you. When you do have a disagreement on the job, on different opinions and stuff, when making your business decisions at a family, how do you guys handle that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
The little look there between you guys, I can tell this might be a bit of a spicy question. The hard-hitting ones.
So here's a classic example. We just finished up a small addition to our offices. We were just packed. We're adding more staff. So we added a couple more offices. And so I had the basic layout, got the layout, and I told Cassie, I said, whatever you want to do. So look, Lori and I are in the process of, in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to be stepping back. So if it doesn't have anything to do, if it has to do with like the normal day-to-day stuff, I think we're square on that. Mm-hmm. If it has anything to do with down the road, 3 to 5 years, I just look at Cassie and say, what do you want to do? So it makes it pretty simple.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when we first started and I first moved into that executive role, I think setting up those different expectations helped us a lot. But I definitely think we did butt heads in different areas because I am a systemizer. That's what I love to do. I love to make systems and make everything run smoothly. And I think everybody has different opinions, especially working with a family dynamic. It's always like, well, why aren't you listening to what I have to say? I'm like, no, we're all trying to work towards the same goal. And so when we really just put that as the face of why we're making all these decisions, and then just understanding we're all in different boxes. I don't know exactly what's best for every box. And I take the executive that's in that box and I really value their information. And I'm not just going to like spearhead it only to what I want to do. So we try to value each other's opinions a lot and just understand that obviously we don't know everything and we want to do it together.
What are some of the more memorable projects you guys have done? Or is there any one or maybe a couple that really stood out or have stood out for you?
Yeah, of course.
So I'll go. This was about 5 years ago, maybe. Yeah, I think 5 years ago. We had a very large project. It was a whole home remodel where we were literally moving the kitchen from one side of the house to the other, moving walls, putting in big pivot doors, all kinds of stuff. And we had a couple of meetings with this client, out-of-state client. They flew in, and I'm like, oh, I realized, holy smokes, I like double booked myself on an appointment. And so we had this last appointment where we were going to close them on the contract. And I sat down with them for about, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And I said, you know what? I apologize. I've got another appointment, but you're in good hands with Cassie. And she's going to, she'll take care of you. And Cassie just looked at me and she went, really? And so an hour and a half later, she calls me and she goes, okay, Dad, I closed the deal. I got a signed contract.
Left me out in the dust. I was like, I do this. I think it was just funny because he didn't tell me before. Like, right. He didn't tell me he was going to leave. I think he just wanted to see what I was going to do.
You got this. You got this, girl. And it ended up being an amazing project. Mm-hmm. They loved it. We did some really fun and unique things with them. And so the other thing too is this couple, they were like in their mid-60s. Yeah. So, and here's Cassie. I think you were 20 at the time,
like
21.
20. Like I was like fresh. And I'm like, yeah, I got this. I'm going to do it.
So, and what you should tell them about Anderson.
He thinks this is so memorable because he was like standing there, literally jaw on the floor, like in shock. I had this client. She was like so set on making this design decision. And I just kept telling her, I was like, I really don't think that's going to work with the overall design that you're looking for and exactly what you're trying to achieve with your job. And she just kept coming at me like, no, like I know exactly what I want. And like, I don't care about anything else. I'm like, but you came to me saying you want it to be cohesive. Max is just standing there in the background. I literally was like, okay, I understand that. But if you want to do that, like, we're just not going to work with you. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just told her that. I was like, yeah, I mean, if she's going to be difficult, I'm not going to work with her and we're not going to like bring her project on. And I think he thinks that's so memorable because he was like, I'm just so proud of you for like telling them like, no way, we're not dealing with that.
Yeah. And again, these clients so we do a lot of work in the Northwest Valley, which is like in the Sun Cities area. Yeah. So there's a lot of retired people. And so she did that. She said that. And the client just sort of stepped back and went, okay. And then we'll just go ahead and do what you say. And we're fine. Okay. So
it was funny.
Yeah, and that kitchen, that project turned out amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It really
Clients really, they don't know exactly what they want sometimes. Yeah. And it's our job to help them and teach them along the way for it.
Oh yeah. The entire construction process obviously is very complicated, but like the pre-construction design part of things is I would just pull my hair out constantly, like coming to you for advice, but also they're the customer. They're always right. How do you work with their ideas? But if you know their ideas aren't going to be good, how do you, be firm about your suggestions there? And I think there are times, and that's something that we've talked about on here before, of like being selective on who you work with. Frees up a ton of stress. All right. It's not 90% of jobs that are, really frustrating and stressful. It's that 10%. So being selective in little increments there can clear your headspace and runway in the long run there. But yeah, definitely both of those stories, they both had happy endings. And I think they just speak to you guys clearly have a great relationship and a lot of trust, which is why you're so successful. Like I definitely remember the first job site that you had kind of left for. and said, okay, can you handle this here? It's like, oh, I don't know. I wasn't as confident as Cassie was, but got it done. So yeah, those are both awesome stories.
For sure. I feel like some of it is, I was just talking to a couple other women in construction and I was like, listen, I faked it till I made it right, until I knew exactly what I was doing, because I was like, coming into it, I just have to seem very confident, like I do know what I'm talking about. Because if I know what I'm talking about, but I come off like kind of timid, some clients just really don't receive that well. So I was like, I'm just going to stick it out and I'm just going to show I can do this.
Oh yeah. And it worked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love that. So it wouldn't be a Buildertrend podcast if we didn't ask at least one question about the technology side of the business. So I know we were talking about this before we hopped on the interview. You've been to BTU a couple times, but when did you guys kind of onboard with Buildertrend, and how has that kind of integrated your systems, transitioning into more technology-based project management?
Yeah.
Well, we had been using CoConstruct since 2017. Okay.
Yeah.
And when CoConstruct was, bought out by Buildertrend, it was like, okay, so we sort of saw the writing on the wall. And I will tell you, this is a pretty interesting thing. So I had my heels dug in a little bit while going to Buildertrend. My wife, Lori, did too. We went to IBS, International Builder Show, in 23, right?
Yeah.
Last year. And
I called you guys and I just was like, hey, can I set up a time to do a demo? And they're like, yeah. I literally texted my parents. I was like, hey, meet me at this booth. And they're like, okay. And I literally sat them down. I was like, we're switching to Buildertrend today. I had already done like so many demos with you guys.
Right.
And it was just crazy. Like the difference of everything that I could do and just like the systematizing version of it. That's like one of my favorite things about it, is knowing that I can just template it and it's there and it's so easy. I'm not going back and doing like rework for things. And once they saw the demo and they're like, okay, we're going to switch. So we switched. And we've been using Buildertrend since February of 21. So we just hit 23. 23,
yeah.
We just hit our 1 year mark. And I did go back to the Buildertrend University. I actually went twice because my brother does live in Omaha. So it was kind of fun. I got to go visit family and do it at the same time. But the first time I went, I think it was like a month in, like I was still just doing my setup. And it was so like, I tell people all the time that are like, oh, well, I'm just starting Buildertrend. I'm like, you just have to go to the university. Like before I even started using it fully, I went to the university and that really set me up for success. Going through it, having like actual hands-on training, like my coach was amazing. I got to meet him in person and just go through that and really learn the best way that it could work for my business. Because what's so amazing about Buildertrend is that it can be really changed and formatted to fit everybody's individual business. So it works well for everybody.
And then we went back. So you went initially, and then about 3 or 4 months later, I went back with Cassie to a super user. And literally, so we get into the Buildertrend. You guys have amazing offices too, by the way. And anybody listening to this, if you don't go to BTU, I'm just telling yourself, you're shooting yourselves in the foot. Yeah. Just do it. Mm-hmm. Just go. Anyway, so I went there, and literally within an hour, I had my name tag. It was Max. I just changed it and just put Cassie's dad.
There you go.
The local legend around the office.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was such a great time. You guys have such an amazing team, and like your guys' culture. I know you guys asked us about ours, but definitely Buildertrend's culture has been like so amazing. And every time I reach out to you guys and my coach, like always so helpful and just like really gets us where we need to be for everything.
My question for you guys is, do you find your clients kind of enjoy being able to use Buildertrend as well?
Yeah. So we do have definitely like a wide demographic of clients, like Max, my dad, I mentioned before. We do a lot of work in the Sun Cities, which is a 55 and up community. And then we have some younger clients as well. So we were nervous at first, even when we started CoConstruct, like how is this going to be received? But we really just take that extra step. We sit down with our clients when we're in the pre-construction phase, and I bring my iPad or I bring my laptop, or one of my designers do it, and they just kind of go through, show them your guys' little like PDF, walk through the system with them, and they really enjoy that. They love the system. I have so many clients, they log on every day. They're looking at the pictures. They're like, so excited this is happening. And we just really sell it as such a value and asset to us, and they receive that very well. And not just our clients, but also our trades. Suppliers use it as well. So knowing that we're all kind of communicating on the same platform, and we just really show them the benefits of it, they really buy into it, which we really appreciate. We actually did like a little Buildertrend training here at our office as well with some of our trades to kind of show them using it. We do Zoom calls with them to help them where we can. So we really try to foster that. Just like Max said, we are a relationship builder. So we try to take the extra mile in every aspect, including Buildertrend, because this is one of the things that does drive our company. So we want to show them the usefulness of it and just take that time.
Yeah, the other thing is we've taken it one step further to a couple of different things. In our pre-construction contract and in our contract, it is required that our clients use Buildertrend. Mm-hmm. So it is a contractual requirement. But before that too, we set up a customer guideline.
Yeah,
handbook,
guidebook.
Really simple. Mm-hmm. And it just says and we just lay out the advantages of why you want to do this. This is one of the things that sets us apart as Tru Builders from some of the other builders out there that don't have Buildertrend. And so it's a huge advantage when it comes. And so we just, we educate our clients. Mm-hmm. This is what we do. This is why we do it. And yeah, you're required to log in. And it's amazing once they get it, just like Cassie said, they like it.
They love it all the time.
So
yeah. So when Charley first started to work for Buildertrend, I have a friend in O'Neill, Nebraska, which is about 3 hours from Omaha. And she was actually building a home in Lincoln, and her contractor was using Buildertrend. And she says, oh, Buildertrend is wonderful. It's just allowed me to kind of, where I'm so far away, I'm still able to keep up on the contract. And she had nothing but great things to say about Buildertrend. And I said, well, maybe Charley's got a great company he's working for here. So that's why I had that question for you.
That's a great question. Awesome. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, and appreciate the free promo, guys. You guys, if you ever want to get into sales, I'm sure Buildertrend has a role for you guys here on the floor.
I know. I'm like, anytime, you guys. His name's Nathan. He was so awesome. He was like, when you guys used one of my videos for a promo, he sent me the link and I was like, I can't believe this. He's like, you're famous.
Love that. Yeah, well, you guys are obviously kind of the picture perfect Buildertrend user. So hearing and sharing your guys' stories and talking through, potential Buildertrend users as well as like, hey, here are the benefits. Here's how you can get set up. Obviously, we want to shout that from the rooftop. So I appreciate all you guys have done to help spread that word. We are getting a little close to time, but I think one last question that would be a good one to end on is just advice that you guys have for families, family members getting into the construction, well, not even construction business, but just getting into business together. What is some advice for you guys that you guys would have for them?
So I think for me, you have to give that family member time. Okay. Give them time to figure out what they want to do and where they may or may not want to fit into the business. You got to let them decide for themselves. Allow them to make mistakes. Everybody's going to make mistakes. None of us are perfect. Okay. And then over and above that, manage some expectations up front. Have fun. I'm all about having fun. If you're not having fun doing what you're doing, and if you're not passionate about it, go do something else. Okay. And then the only other thing is that, hey, when you leave work, business is done. Okay. And then just being able to separate that business from personal. It is interesting, though, that once Cassie decided, hey, yes, this is really what I want to do, we really stayed focused on, okay, work's work, business is business, and then personal is personal. It's amazing how many times we'd be on our personal time, hanging out, doing something else, and Cassie would go, and she would start bringing up work, and I'd look at her and I go, really?
I'm like, sorry, it's just on my mind. No, I think for me personally, what I really loved about coming into Tru Builders with my parents, and especially my dad, is he never limited my growth here. He always pushed me and strived, and I strived to be better because I saw how much him as an individual was pushed, and he is so amazing, and everything that he's done. He's obviously been in the business for a really long time, and that was just a work ethic for me to continue to move forward and just do what I'm doing. And I always tell people, someone just asked me this, I'm like, yes, expectations are great, but don't, I didn't go into it thinking oh, I'm just going to be doing this. And he never once capped where I could grow or where he, I could see myself. And that was so amazing. He's always my cheerleader, pushing me and telling me yes, you can do this. where do you want to see the business? Like, where do you want to be, not just in the business, but in your personal life? And so it was like just continuing to push us. And I think that's the biggest advice. Like, don't put people in boxes, or don't say like, oh, you can only do this part of the business. Like, you're going into it, you have to really just value each other's opinion and just understand you guys are all striving for the same goal at the end of the day, to be successful, which is measured in so many different ways. But more importantly, like, are you happy with what you're doing and love it there?
Yeah, you guys are a testament to, if you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's what I kept thinking when you were talking about that. And this is going to be like a Father's Day episode. So, Max, I see why you're so very, very proud. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that this is going to be airing on Father's Day. And if you haven't figured it out, I'm pretty proud of my son, too. So,
yeah.
Well, you should be.
Yep.
That's awesome.
A lot of love. I think fantastic end of the episode, and I think that we can definitely get you guys back on a couple more times. I'd love to check in a year from now and see how things are going. I also would love to get your husband on here, Cassie. We can do a wife-husband dynamic, similar format. We'll just hit all the different family relationships.
I'm like everything, guys. We can do it all.
Thank you guys so much. You're both great, and I really enjoyed it. I can tell you have a fun, loving dynamic. It's been great talking to you guys today.
Of course.
Hey, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Well, Dad, we just wrapped up with Cassie and Max from Tru Builders, and we just wrapped up with your first ever podcast appearance. So really, really interested. Before we get to you, which I do want to get to get some feedback, what do you think of Cassie and Max?
Just seems like they have a great relationship. It sounds like their company is really thriving, and what I really got was the joy they seem to have working. And like I told them, I said, if you enjoy a job, you're never going to work a day in your life. And I think they kind of exemplified that.
Yeah, I thought the story Max brought up of like, well, we try to keep work and family time like separate, but now Cassie's talking to me about work during personal time. Just a quick little anecdote. I got married a couple weeks ago, or I guess a couple months ago by the time this airs. And my boss, Jason, who I became close personal friends with, was there. And we were talking about work stuff. And his girlfriend, Lauren, came over and was like, are you guys talking about work? Like, it's Charley's wedding. I'm like, no, this is best. I would love to talk about work right now. Like, I don't want to go make small talk with 100 other people. Like, this is perfect. So thank you for doing that. And that's just what reminded me of, like, when you can talk about work in your personal time and enjoy it, obviously you're doing something you love. And I loved that anecdote from Cassie. Okay, so now to you. What did your first ever podcast appearance? Did it live up to the hype?
Yeah, I would say it did. I'm kind of a Joe Rogan fan, so it's kind of fun to be able to get behind a mic here, and I could see myself doing this again.
I know. Well, you have the bald head, so if you weren't wearing a hat, you could wear a little tighter T-shirt. People might kind of pass you off for
I don't
JRE.
know that.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. For those listening, James drove up 3 hours to be here today, so really, really appreciate the time. Appreciate you being such a great father, and to all the fathers out there listening to this on this special Father's Day episode, thank you for all you do from a son. I'll never be able to thank you for being a father to me and all you've taught me growing up, not just about construction, but about life as well. So appreciate you.
Absolutely, and I hope all the fathers out there are lucky enough to have great kids like I have. I got to throw a prop out to his sister Samantha as well.
Absolutely. Well, that will do it. We will see James on here 1 year from now on Father's Day again. Just kidding. Maybe we can sneak in before then. But thank you for listening. As always, check us out. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, would really appreciate a like, review, subscribe if you can. And you can join the Building Code crew on Facebook. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching the video. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content brought to you by Buildertrend.